Now I think, Shirin, would you like to speak now? I think Shirin, Judge and Laureate Shirin Ebadi will speak. Shirin Ershadi will translate.
امروز من مایلم کمی در مورد اینکه چطور تصمیمات یک حکومت میتواند صلح رو به خطر بیاندازه با شما صحبت کنم.
Today I want to talk to you about how decisions of one country can risk peace in other countries.
نمونه های خیلی زیادی میتونم براتون بیام، ولی چون اینجا نیویورک دلم میخواد یادآوری کنم از یک فاجعه‌ای که اتفاق افتاد.
I can give you many examples, but since we're close to New York, I want to talk about a catastrophic event that happened here.
زمانی که برج‌های دوقلو رو زدند، این یک فاجعه بود و 4000 بیگناه کشته شدند که همه ماها عمیقاً متأثریم.
When the Twin Towers were hit, approximately 4,000 people lost their lives, and all of us are very sorry about that.
من با بازماندگان اعلام همدردی میکنم و در کشور من جوونا شمع روشن کردن و تو خیابون راهپیمایی میکردن و اعلام عزاداری کردن.
I sympathize with the families of that have lost their loved ones. I want to tell you that young people in my country held a candlelight vigil in this regard.
اما مایل هستم که من این رو ریشه یابی بکنم و بگم که چطور شد این اتفاق افتاد.
But I want to go to the roots cause of why it happened.
سالها قبل اتحاد جماهیر شوروی به افغانستان حمله کرد.
Years ago, the USSR attacked Afghanistan.
آمریکا که رقیب اتحاد جماهیر شوروی بود میخواست با اسلام رادیکال جلوی نفوذ کمونیست ها رو بگیره.
And America, which was a rival of the USSR, decided to stop the communists by creating radical Islamism.
و به همین دلیل به گروه های رادیکال اسلامی کمک مالی زیادی میکرد و اونا رو تقویت میکرد که با شوروی بجنگن.
Therefore, they looked for radical Islamic groups, supported them financially so that they could fight the USSR.
یکی از این گروه ها که با حمایت مالی آمریکا تأسیس شد طالبان بود که در شمال پاکستان اونجا مدارسی داشتن و تربیت میکردن.
One of these groups were the Taliban, who were supported financially by the US. They were in north of Pakistan. There were schools that kids were being trained, and they were supported in order to fight the communists.
و اینها سالها دوستان صمیمی آمریکا بودند و با کمونیست‌ها می‌جنگیدند.
For years they were allies of the United States because they were fighting the communists.
بعد که اتحاد جماهیر شوروی از بین رفت دیگه احتیاجی به دوست قدیمی نبود.
However, when the USSR was toppled, there was no need for that old friend.
اما در این موقع دیگه دیو از شیشه بیرون آمده بود و قدرتش رو پیدا کرده بود.
But at this time, genie was out of the bottle and it was powerful.
و این گروه های رادیکال اسلامی که با کمک آمریکا هم به وجود آمده بودند باعث ترورهای زیادی شدن. به چندین سفارت آمریکا حمله کردن قبلا.
And the radical Islamic groups, some of which were created even by the United States, had started attacking American interests, even some embassies of the United States.
و همچنین فاجعه برج‌های دوقلو رو ایجاد کردن.
And they created the catastrophic events of the Twin Towers.
و سوال من از شما این است که آیا جلوی نفوذ کمونیسم رو با ایجاد گروه‌های رادیکال اسلامی گرفتن سیاست درستی بود؟
And my question for you is whether stopping communism through radical Islamic groups was a correct policy.
و آیا الان درسته که یک گروه خیلی کوچکی رو ما نماینده مسلمان‌های جهان بدانیم، همونطوری که برخی از مدیای آمریکایی اعلام میکنه و بگیم مسلمان‌ها تروریستن؟
And is it correct now to consider a small group of radicals as the representatives of all the Muslims in the world, like some of the media in the US does, and generalize the issue and say that all Muslims are terrorists?
و بدین وسیله یک دشمنی دیگری ایجاد کنیم؟
And create another animosity?
مثال دیگر میخوام بزنم براتون.
I want to give you another example.
صدام حسین یک دیکتاتور بود و سال در 1981 به ایران حمله کرد.
Saddam Hussein was a dictator. In 1981, he attacked Iran
و باعث شد که ما 8 سال جنگ خونینی با عراق داشتیم.
and created a war that lasted 8 years with Iran. It was a blood-shedding war.
صدام حسین 15 شهر ایران رو از بین برد تا حدی که هیچ آثاری دیگه ازشون باقی نمونده بود و اصلا نمیدونستن خیابونا کجاست.
He leveled 15 cities in Iran, meaning that when you went there after the war, you couldn't tell where the streets were.
صدام حسین چند بار ایران رو بمباران شیمیایی کرد.
And a few times he used chemical bombs on Iran.
صدام حسین بمب شیمیایی رو نداشت بلکه اینو از غرب گرفته بود.
He didn't make the chemical bomb himself. He had purchased it from the West.
همون موقع که صدام روی ایران بمب شیمیایی میریخت، تلویزیون‌های خبری یک صحنه رو نشون دادن که احتمالاً شما هم تو آمریکا دیدید.
At the time that Saddam Hussein used chemical bombs on Iran, the news in the media showed a video that you all might have seen as well.
دونالد رامسفلد رفته بود بغداد، با صدام دست داد و گفتش که مورد حمایت آمریکاست برای اینکه ایران را از بین ببره.
Donald Rumsfeld had gone to visit Saddam Hussein. He shook hands with Saddam Hussein and stated that he supported Saddam Hussein in order to destruct Iran.
و به هر حال جنگ تمام شد.
Of course, the war came to an end.
و دوست قدیمی 2 مرتبه دشمن شد.
However, the old friend became an enemy again.
و این بار و بعد از یه مدت و باز هم غول از شیشه بیرون آمده بود.
And again, the genie was out of the bottle.
و این بار به بهانه اینکه صدام حسین بمب شیمیایی داره، همون بمبایی که خودشون به صدام داده بودن به آمریکا به عراق حمله کرد.
And this time, on the excuse that Saddam Hussein had chemical bombs or weapons of mass destruction, America attacked Iraq.
و فاجعه‌ای به وجود آمد که تا الان هم ادامه داره.
And a catastrophe happened that's still continuing.
آیا حمایت صدام و رفتن رامسفلد به بغداد زمانی که داشت از بمب شیمیایی علیه ایران استفاده میکرد سیاست درستیه؟
Was the policy of supporting Saddam when he was using chemical bombs on Iran correct?
نمونه های خیلی زیادتری هست اما من فرصتم محدوده.
There are of course other examples, but my time is limited.
و اما نتیجه‌ای که میخوام بگیرم، اما میخوام از حرفان یک نتیجه بگیرم.
But I want to conclude from what I said.
شما حرف 2 نفر از پیس میکرها رو شنیدید که میگفتن شما هم میتوانید در ایجاد صلح نقش داشته باشید.
You heard before me speaking 2 peacemakers who talked to you about you guys having a say in peace.
و من حرفم با تک تک شما هاست. شماها می توانید تغییر ایجاد کنید. شماها می توانید مؤثر باشید در صلح بین المللی.
And I want to talk to each and every one of you. I want to say that you can make change. You can create international peace.
چطوری؟
How?
شما وقتی که رأی می دهید به افرادی رأی بدهید و به گروه‌های رأی بدهید که مرتکب این اشتباه ها نشدن.
When you want to vote for those people or those groups that have not made these kind of mistakes.
من همیشه گفتم آمریکا یک سوپر پاوره.
I have always said that America is a superpower.
و دنیا بهتر نمیشه مگر اینکه سیاست این سوپر پاور بهتر بشه.
And the world is not going to become better unless the policy of this superpower changes.
و سیاست آمریکا زمانی بهتر میشه که شما مردم آمریکا بدانید در جهان چه گذشته و آمریکایی‌ها چیکار کردن.
And the policy of the United States will become better when you Americans know what has happened in the past and what Americans have done.
و به همین دلیله که من از شما آمریکایی‌ها خواهش میکنم موقع انتخابات توی خونه نشینید، برید رأی بدید و به افرادی رأی بدهید که مرتکب این اشتباهات نشدن و به صلح اعتقاد دارن.
This is why I want to ask you all Americans, go vote. Don't sit at home during the elections. Vote, and vote for people who believe in peace and who have not committed these mistakes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ebadi. Good advice. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you. And now we turn to a politician who has not committed these mistakes, Congressman Donald Payne from the New Jersey 10th District, Chair of the Black Caucus and House Education Committee. Congressman Payne.
Thank you very much. Will you stay in Newark and be my campaign manager? Let me say how pleased I am to be here this morning with so many distinguished personalities, from Nobel laureates to our youth leaders. And I think that that's the balance that we need. Let me say how proud I am for you to come to Newark. You could have been anywhere in the world. When I was a youngster in school, we used to sing a song, "This is my country, land of my birth. This is my country, grandest on earth." I'll just paraphrase it, that this is my city, the city of my birth. This is my city, I think the greatest on earth. And we had problems in our city, and there was no peace, because there's no peace without justice. And we had a problem. In 1967, the people rebelled in Newark against an unjust system. It was referred to as a riot. We referred to it as a rebellion, because people spoke out against injustice. And so we've had a scar in Newark for many, many years. It made it difficult for people to come to Newark, negative image about a place where peace did not exist. However, we knew that one day truth crushed the earth will rise again, and you would not be here if those images were still prevalent. So let me once again thank you. We have a very proud city. Matter of fact, in our city, the first thing a person will ask you even before your name is, what neighborhood do you live in? Because everybody's proud of their individual neighborhoods. And we're a city with how many people knew that we had this tremendous, beautiful performing arts center, right, before you came? And a magnificent museum run by Mary Sue Sweeney, Dr. Price's wife, and a wonderful library, and so many, but mainly many, many great people who live in this city. We are the third oldest city in the United States, founded in 1666. Robert Treat, where some of the activities were held, came from Plymouth, and they came for religious freedom, for peace. However, third oldest city in the United States. However, as Robert Treat, and although the transition in the Newark area was basically a friendly situation, as we look at the history of our nation, the way the Native Americans, this was their land, have been eliminated practically. People who came for religious freedom, for peace, turned against people who were the original inhabitants. And so many times we have to think through our history to see about the mistakes that we've made. Let me just say that it's really a pleasure to, as I mentioned before, being a member of Congress. We certainly have many issues that come before us that deal with war and peace. I would like to mention, though, that I was very proud of President Obama at his Cairo speech, where he said that the United States of America is not at war with Islam, that we need to be brothers together. As a matter of fact, Newark also had many, many great people in our past and in our present, but one was a fellow named Stephen Crane, who was an author who wrote The Red Badge of Courage, and it was interesting that it was a turning point because all authors glorified war. They talked about all of the romanticism, and Stephen Crane talked about the horrors of war and talked about how devastating it was, and I think that at least it finally introduced how devastating war is. I think that the world has turned its back on people when we watched the genocide in Rwanda, where no one would step forward. As a matter of fact, the word genocide was never spoken by authorities of our government. At hearings that I conducted in those days, we asked, isn't this genocide? And the word was never used. It was danced around because there was feeling of an obligation that if genocide was declared, you had to act. I think if the world had acted in 1915 with the genocide of the Armenians, there would probably be a different position today. As a matter of fact, Adolf Hitler said in a speech that who will care about what we're doing because, quoted, no one acted against the genocide in Armenia by the Ottoman Empire, then Turkey. And so we have, in many instances, avoided our responsibilities as a nation and as a society. We saw Cambodia, we saw Rwanda, we saw Darfur. And I was very pleased that for the first time, a resolution, I'm not here to, you can't vote for me, so it's not to pat myself on the back, but I introduced a resolution saying that genocide was occurring in Darfur, and it passed the House of Representatives 421-0. The genocide was happening in Darfur, and the U.S. government declared that Secretary Powell and President Bush said, yes, genocide is occurring. However, it did not do what I thought it would do, because the world should have reacted. People in Darfur still live in camps where I visit, out in Chad and in remote places, having to struggle for daily existence, for food and water and medical attention, and they want schools for their children even though they're out on a bleak desert. And so the world has not dealt with the genocide in Darfur and in other places around the world. And so we have to, and I agree, to get the right people representing us in the U.S. House and in the U.S. Senate. But there are good things that we're doing. We have the 50th anniversary of the Peace Corps being celebrated right now. 200,000 Americans have served in the Peace Corps. 139 countries have been served. This is a good thing, and we want to see it continued. I assume my time is up. What we say in Congress is, well, 1 minute, okay. Let me just say, and see if I can get 5 minutes in 1 minute. But we have to really come up with solutions to ending wars. They're too costly in lives. We can't afford it. Economically, we have a deficit that everyone is saying, let's spare the millionaires, but let's cut the money and the funds for the poor and the vulnerable, and that's not right. If we started to reduce our military spending, $700 million, $700 billion, excuse me, the fact that each additional troop in Afghanistan is a cost of $1 million a year. Just multiply that when you take the amounts. That's what they give us, the low ball figure. And so we have much to do, but I think this is certainly a step in the right direction. We must really judge people by the content of their character so that we can have peace in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you very much. And does anyone have any comment? We have a minute or two to talk about that. Yes, Joe?
There's a sort of question that I've wrestled with for a long time that seems appropriate as a response to this. I remember when I was little, my grandfather, my family was Jewish, told me that when he signed up for the British North Africa Corps, because he had heard some of the rumors of the Holocaust that was starting to happen. And I'm interested in the response to this panel of how we deal with, on the one hand, seeing terrible genocides, on the other hand, a resistance towards military interference, especially when it has backfired so often. I mean, some of the justification, not saying it was the right one, of invading Iraq was that Saddam Hussein had committed genocide on the Kurds and other people in Iraq. And so I don't have an answer to this, but I'm interested for this panel in how we, as people who care about peace, reconcile when it seems like war is potentially the only answer to stopping unspeakable horror.
Anyone? Yes, Alyn? Oh, yes, Leymah?
I want to jump in. Genocides don't happen overnight. Wars don't happen overnight. There are signs, there are signals. Why are we not proactive? Before Rwanda, there were signs that one ethnic group was being empowered more than the other. There were hate speeches. Why didn't those Western nations or international partners who were so close to this group try to stop it? We have to wait till 1 million people die or close to 1 million people, then we say military intervention. Saddam Hussein didn't happen overnight. Countries funded his regime. Countries were his allies. They saw everything that was happening. Why didn't they try to stop it? And we have the same situation happening in different countries now. Why do we always have to wait in this world until something terrible happens before we step in?
Good question.
I think the answer to your question is proactiveness. Let's be proactive. Let's stop being reactive to conflict and issues of world peace.
Okay, very good. Alyn?
Bob. Thank you, Congressman Payne, for joining us. President Obama put forward a vision for a nuclear weapons-free world, and UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has talked about the importance of legislators around the world to help implement this vision, and so took the unique move of sending a letter to every parliament in the world. And in the US, it was Vice President Joe Biden who presented Ban Ki-moon's letter to the US Congress. What do you think US legislators can do in collaboration with parliamentarians around the world to help implement this vision for a nuclear weapons-free world?
Well, one thing we need to do is to change a number of the senators. But it's extremely difficult. Our complex government, especially the U.S. Senate, is an area where one senator, one person, can hold up an entire legislative process. And as a matter of fact, under Senate rules, that senator does not have to make his name public. So you can have a hold on something, so you have to get 100 to agree. And we are proud of our checks and balances as a nation, and that's why we have been able to continue forward without any interruption in democracy. But I would hope that they would revisit that particular part of the U.S. Senate's rules.
Thank you. And Judge Ebadi, Dr. Ebadi?
سوال سر این است که چگونه می شود جلوی دیکتاتورها و خونریزی بیشتر رو گرفت بدون اینکه جنگی شروع کنیم.
So the issue is, without starting a war, how can we stop the dictators and their bloodshedding?
من به رویه جدیدی که در دنیا شروع شده اشاره می کنم و این روش رو بایستی ادامه بدیم.
But I think that there have steps been taken, and I think that we should follow those steps, and I'll talk to you about it.
میدونید که در ایران مردم مخالف حکومت هستند و یک جنبشی از سال 2009 شروع شد که به شدت از طرف حکومت مردم سرکوب شدند، تعداد زیادی کشته شدند.
You know that in Iran, the people are against the government. A movement started approximately 2 years ago in 2009. The government strongly repressed the people and a number were killed.
ما نه با حمله نظامی به ایران موافق بودیم و نه با تحریم اقتصادی، برای اینکه اینا وضعیت مردم رو بدتر میکرد.
We do not agree with the military attack on Iran or economic sanctions because they both hurt the people.
من همیشه صحبت از تحریم سیاسی میکردم.
I had always talked about political sanctions.
و خوشحالم که قسمتی از این تحریم سیاسی که من راجع بهش صحبت میکردم اجرا شده.
And I'm very glad that this political sanction that I was talking about has been enforced.
هم آمریکا و هم اتحادیه اروپا لیستی تهیه کردن از افرادی که در کشتار و سرکوب مردم دخالت مستقیم داشتن و گفتن که اینا رو راه نمیدن و اگر اموالی داشته باشن مصادره میکنن.
Both the United States and the European Union have prepared a list of the people who were directly involved in the killings or repression of people in Iran. They won't let them into their country, and if they have property in these countries, such property will be confiscated.
با این کار میشه دنیا رو واسه دیکتاتورها کوچیک کرد.
Doing this, we can make the world smaller for the dictators.
دیکتاتورها اگر بدانند که جایی در دنیای آزاد ندارند و پولهاشون رو که معمولاً در بانک‌های اروپایی و آمریکایی مصادره میشه، اون موقع انقدر خشونت نمی‌کنن.
If the dictators know that they have no place in the free world and their property, which is usually in the form of money in different European or American banks, will be seized, then they're not going to resort to as much violence as they do now.
این یه روش خوبی است که خوشبختانه از تقریباً از 2 سال قبل تو جهان شروع شده.
This is a good thing that has started approximately from 2 years ago in the world.
بعد از ایران سوریه و لیبی هم شامل این تحریم‌ها شدن. یه تعدادی از افراد این دو کشور رو تحریم کردن.
After Iran, a number of people from Syria and also from Libya were subject to the same kind of sanctions.
اگر به جای اینکه به کشورها حمله بکنید برای اینکه دیکتاتورها رو سرنگون کنید، بایستی دنیا رو برای دیکتاتورها کوچیک کرد و به اونها نشون داد که با این خشونت باعث میشه که دیگه جایی برای خارج از کشور نداشته باشن.
Instead of attacking countries to topple dictators, it is best to prove to them that they have no place in the free world by sanctioning them politically.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we move on now. These issues will come back again, although I'm sorry, I have to step, Congressman, I have to step a little bit out of moderator role, and I have to say there is a genocide going on in Tibet, and did go on. It was proclaimed in 1961 by the International Commission of Jurists, and nowadays the Dalai Lama, being polite as he is, if he were here, he talks about cultural genocide, and certainly people who know about the headwaters of all the rivers of Asia talk about ecocide, the destruction of the headwaters of these rivers, but with the current policies of the Chinese dictatorship, which it is not popular to mention is a dictatorship. In fact, it's not a capitalist nirvana and a mega mall, actually, as they are arresting all their own Nobel Prize laureates and so on. So I'm sorry, I just want to add, I have to speak for the Tibetan people in this context. I'm very sorry to add that. And the Congress has made various resolutions about Tibet as an occupied country and so on, very, very nobly, and which is very appreciated, although the State Department hasn't quite picked it up because of business interests, you know. Why does America not intervene in these things? They don't intervene when there are business interests that override, you know, oil and so on, override. And that's we can answer that question.
On Friday of this week, we had a hearing about China and its horrible policies of one child, policies of arresting dissidents, the fact that U.S. companies will go along with censorship, and we have, and I asked a question whether our business giants who do all of this business in China, do they ever ask the question? They want the government to ask the question, what about those businesses that are making tremendous amounts of money?
Thank you.
They should be asking the question and changing it also.
Thank you.
Make that a part of, if you want our plant, you have to do these things.
Yes.
I think China can be changed if the giants of economy would step up and make that an issue.
Thank you, Congressman Payne. Thank you. When the human rights concern equals the business concern, then America will have a better hand in the world. I think that's true.